You know that feeling when you wake up, sit on the edge of the bed, and have to mentally negotiate with your own knees before you stand up. You swing your legs over, feel that deep stiffness settling in your lower back, and notice that your digestion feels sluggish before you have even eaten anything. You walk to the bathroom mirror, splash some water on your face, and then you open the medicine cabinet. You look at those little orange plastic bottles lined up like soldiers. One for the blood pressure that keeps creeping up, one for the acid reflux, one for the joint pain. You take them because the doctor told you to, but deep down, you wonder if you are actually fixing the engine or just putting black tape over the check engine light on the dashboard. I know that exact routine because I lived it. I am Harold Bennett. I am 81 years old, and I have spent most of my life working in community health education, trying to translate complicated medical jargon into plain English for folks like us. But knowing how to explain health to others does not automatically make you immune to the calendar. After I crossed into my late 70s, my own engine started running rough. My blood pressure was bouncing around. My joints felt like rusted hinges every morning, and my digestion was unpredictable at best. I was doing what I thought was right. I was taking the pills, but I felt myself slowing down, losing ground to the years and accepting it as just the normal cost of getting old. Back in Ohio, where I grew up, my father worked in a manufacturing plant for decades. He was a proud, stubborn man who believed that if something hurt, you just worked through it, and if it broke completely, you went to the doctor to get a pill to numb it. He ignored the small warning signs his body gave him until those signs became massive structural failures. He passed away long before he should have, entirely from things that could have been managed if he had paid attention earlier. My wife Margaret, on the other hand, always favored a quieter approach. She believed the body needed gentle daily maintenance, not sudden, desperate repairs. I lost Margaret a few years ago, and living alone in this Arizona heat gives a man plenty of time to sit on the porch and reflect on the habits that actually keep us moving. The turning point for me did not come from a dramatic hospital visit or a sudden revelation. It came during a regular Tuesday evening phone call with my daughter Laura. She is a registered nurse up in Phoenix, and she has a sharp eye for the things doctors often miss in a rush. I was complaining about my morning stiffness and how my stomach felt constantly heavy, like I was trying to digest wet cement. Laura listened patiently, and then she asked me what I was putting into my system first thing in the morning. I told her I was having my usual coffee and whatever medication was scheduled. She told me I was trying to start a cold, dry engine without checking the oil first. She suggested I look into a very old, very simple practice. Not a new pharmaceutical breakthrough, but something people have been doing for generations before we decided every problem required a chemical solution. She challenged me to change the very first thing I swallowed every morning. I started reading. I dug into research papers and historical texts about how traditional cultures, folks who lived long, active lives without modern pharmacies, manage the natural wear and tear of aging. I kept finding references to the same handful of common seeds, things you can find in almost any grocery store. The first one I read about was fenugreek. It is a small, hard seed that most people ignore. But what I learned is that these seeds are packed with specific compounds that act like a natural solvent for the chronic inflammation in our bodies. Inflammation is basically internal rust. It is what makes your knees ache and your arteries stiffen. But here is the catch, and it is the reason most people get this entirely wrong. You cannot just boil these seeds like a bag of tea. If you drop them into hot water, the heat aggressively destroys the most delicate and important compounds. You burn off the very medicine you are trying to extract. The secret I learned is patience. It is the cold soak. I started taking just a teaspoon of fenugreek seeds and dropping them into a glass of room temperature filtered water right on my kitchen counter before I went to bed. I covered it with a small cloth and just left it alone. While I slept, that water slowly and gently broke down the tough outer wall of the seed. Over 8 to 12 hours, the water extracts every mineral, every fiber, and every anti-inflammatory compound perfectly. The next morning, the water had a slight yellow tint. Before my coffee, before I even checked the morning news, I drank that water. Within a few weeks, I noticed the morning negotiation with my knees was getting shorter. The rust was loosening. But the body is a complex system of plumbing and wiring, and fixing one part usually reveals where another part needs support. As I got moving easier, I noticed I was still holding on to fluid. My legs felt heavy by the afternoon. That led me to the second seed, coriander. Not the green leafy part you put on tacos, but the round, dry seeds. I learned that lightly crushing a spoonful of coriander seeds and adding them to my nightly water glass acted like a gentle filter for the kidneys. As we age, our internal filters get clogged with the debris of processed foods and daily living. The coriander helps the body flush out that excess fluid and sodium naturally, without forcing the kidneys into overdrive the way some chemical water pills do. When the plumbing runs clear, the pressure in the pipes drops. My blood pressure reading started to settle into a much more comfortable rhythm. But I still had that heavy feeling in my gut. Digestion is the foundation of a house. If the foundation is crumbling, it does not matter how nice the roof looks. My son Daniel, who works as a physical therapist in Denver, always tells his older patients that you cannot out-exercise a bad digestive system. Your body needs fuel, but if it cannot process the fuel, it just sits there causing trouble. So I added cumin seeds to the glass. Cumin is the spark plug. It slightly increases your internal metabolic rate. It tells the stomach to wake up and produce the enzymes needed to break down food efficiently. Once I added cumin to the overnight soak, that afternoon sluggishness disappeared. I stopped feeling bloated after a simple lunch. My body was actually using the food I gave it instead of storing it as a burden. There were still occasional days, though, usually when the weather shifted or I ate something entirely out of my routine, where my stomach would cramp up or I would feel a sharp ache in my lower back. For those specific days, I kept a fourth seed in the pantry. Carom, sometimes called ajwain. It is incredibly potent, so you only use a tiny pinch. It contains a compound that acts as an immediate relaxant for smooth muscle. When my digestion felt completely blocked or a spasm hit my gut, soaking a little carom overnight created a water that worked almost instantly the next morning to release the pressure. It is the emergency release valve for the whole system. Eventually, I learned to harmonize the whole routine with one final addition: fennel seeds. I dropped a spoonful of fennel into the glass with the fenugreek, coriander, and cumin. Fennel is the peacekeeper. It has a mild, sweet taste, but its real job is to balance the entire digestive tract and calm down any lingering irritation in the stomach lining. It ties the whole mixture together, making it easier for the body to absorb all those different benefits without any conflict. It took me 4 decades of adult life and a whole lot of unnecessary aches and pains to realize that the most powerful interventions are rarely the most expensive ones. Every single night now, before I turn off the kitchen light, I prepare my glass. A little fenugreek, some crushed coriander, a dash of cumin, and a spoonful of fennel. I pour the room temperature water, cover it, and go to sleep. I let time and water do the heavy lifting. I let the seeds release their compounds slowly, the exact way a canyon is carved by a steady river, not by a sudden explosion. The next morning, I drink that glass on an empty stomach. It is a quiet, deliberate promise I make to my own body before the noise of the day begins. It is not a miracle cure. If you have a serious medical condition, you need to talk to your doctor, and you never just throw away your prescriptions. I still see my physician regularly. But what this daily habit did was change the environment inside my body. It removed the blockages that were keeping my body from doing what it naturally knows how to do, which is to repair itself. After 60, the little things are what matter most. The body does not ask twice in the same way. It whispers before it shouts. You might be sitting there thinking your joints are too stiff, your blood pressure is too stubborn, or your digestion is too far gone to respond to something as simple as seeds soaked in water. You might think it is too late to start maintaining the engine. It isn't. The independence we want to keep tomorrow is protected in the small, quiet habits we build today. You do not have to wait for the machine to break down completely before you start taking care of it. Try it for a month. Get a glass, get the seeds, and let the water do the work while you sleep. See how your engine feels when you give it the right oil first thing in the morning. I'm going to go head into the kitchen and set up my glass for tomorrow. Take care of yourself